Okay, so today we're going to look at file streams. And so one good thing to do whenever you're doing something with a file is to always make sure to close it when you are finished. That'll make sure that all the information is written to the file and it is left in a valid state. And so the command is, for instance, whatever the name of it is, you have my file dot close, and you have the parentheses with a semicolon. That will then close the file and make sure that everything is finished and good to go. So as an example, we're going to see how you would do this. So for our first program, we're going to include the file stream library. So we're going to do pound include fstream in the less than and greater than symbols. We're going to use the namespace std like we always do. Have int main as usual. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do fstream grocery file. So this is a lot like declaring a variable like, I don't know, int x or string s, whatever you want to call it. We've got fstream grocery file. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open that file. We're going to call it grocerylist.dat. And then we're going to do a comma and then say fstream out. So we're going to output this file. We're going to create a new file that does not already exist. We're then going to do, we've got the stream operators, kind of like what we've seen with cin and cout. So here we're going to do grocery file. We're going to stream into it, kind of like cin, only this time we're doing streaming in. We're going to do the text skim milk in quotes and the line. What we are then going to do is do grocery file, stream into it the word eggs. And then when we're all done, we're going to do grocery file dot close and then close the file and be done with it. So I went ahead and executed this already because it did take a really long time for this to compile. But so you notice I'm actually using Visual Studio. Doing an online platform is not going to work so well because you really are not able to create files through an online host. You would have to be doing this on your own machine. So I went ahead and ran this code. And so this is the output window. And so it's telling me where the file is going. So it's giving me this, this trail of where to find it. And they said it exited with code 0, which you might remember from back in the day. We said, if your program returns a 0, that means if the main function returns 0, that means everything's A-OK. Everything was executed correctly. And so then if I go to my file explorer, here is, under the users mat, and then the C++ 151 thing. And if we go here, we will see a DAT file called grocery list. So this is the location of the file that it just made. I can open this file. I've told it to open it using Notepad, and there you go. Da-da-da, we have 2 lines of text of our grocery list. How about that? All right, so let's close this file. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can read from that file. So what we're going to do is we're going to do now that the file exists, we're then going to do this code right here, and let's finish with this. So now we're going to do program number 2, and what this is going to do, again, we've got the input output stream, fstream, and string. This time we're going to, again, we have grocery file. Here we're going to open it, and this time we're going to do fstream in. So we're going to input into the file stream a file that already exists. Rather than outputting a file where we made it, here we are inputting a file and putting the file into the compiler. We're then going to create a string s, We're going to pull from groceries file. We're going to stream to S, and then we're going to output S and end the line. And then, as we should always do, we're going to close the file. Let's also put the system pause in here. So let's see what this does for us here. Give it a minute. Okay, so you notice it only read in skim. It did not read in skim milk, which is maybe not what we were hoping for. So, as we've encountered before with strings, anytime you have a space, the computer is going to interpret that as the end of the string. So let's do a modified version of the code here, so that this way we can read in the entire word skim milk rather than just the word skim. So again, we're going to open the file and we're going to do the stream as the input. This time we're going to do a string S. Like we've done previously, we're going to use the getLine function. We're going to read grocery file and we're going to read to S. And then we're going to output whatever S the string is and then close the file. And so let's see what happens when we do this, when we use getLine rather than just reading a string and having it stop once it hits a space. So we'll give it a minute here. So now it reads skim milk. So it's reading that entire line, that entire string from the DAT file, the DAT data file. Okay, so we're done with that one. So if we go back over here, so before we've always used cin as the input stream. fstream is another option that we have for having an input stream and also an output stream. So we have instead of using the IO stream where we did cin and cout, now we're doing a file stream where we can read from files, where we can do inputs of reading in from files, or we can output to files and create new files. We're using the getLine function, as I mentioned. It reads the entire line, not just the first word. Now, usually what we want to do is we want to read all the way to the end of a file. So there is a function, an fstream function called EOF. EOF stands for end of file. And it's, so it would be this kind of format. You'd have fstream object.eof. EOF takes no argument. So it's just going to be empty parentheses. It is a Boolean that will return true if we're at the end of the file. Otherwise, it will be false. So this is helpful if you want to read the entire grocery list and not just stop after the very first line. So let's take a look at this here. And again, we do want to pause the system. So what we're doing, we're creating fstream myfile. We're going to open the file grocerylist.dat. We're creating a string S. We're going to read to myfile the string S. And then what we have is we have a loop. So we're saying while, and then exclamation point is not. So while myfile is not at the end of file, we're going to output S, the string, and the line. And then we're going to go back and read a string. So we're going to stream from myfile and stream to the string S again. And we're going to keep doing that until it reaches the end of the file. And then after we do that, we're going to close the file. And this will read in all of the data in the grocery list and output it. So it's got skim, it's got milk, and then it's got eggs. So it read in the entirety of the file. So it didn't just stop at the end of the first line, it read through to the very end. So here we've got a while loop, and so while the end of function, while that is not true, we're going to keep outputting the contents of the file. When we reach the end of the file, we're going to exit the loop, and that's going to happen when end of file is true. One thing that is a little bit tricky about EOF is that it is not true when it reaches the last item. It has to read the last item, try reading again, and if it doesn't find something there, then it's going to return true. So we read the string first before the loop, and then we also read the string again at the end of the loop, and that way every time before we call the EOF function, we're always checking first before doing the EOF function. That's basically the consequence of this. If you tried to feed it a file that was empty and did not stream to my file S, the string S first, you would run into problems. So you need to basically read in what's there, and if there is nothing, if you try to read something in and it's not there, then it will decide that it has reached the end of the file. So basically, you always need to try to read something before you call the end of file function. This next one is pretty much identical to what we just did. The only difference is that instead of using a while loop, we are using a for loop. So we're saying for, we've got my file to S, and then we've got the colon, while not my file at the end of file, and then semicolon, and then we're going to read to my file S again, and then just see out whatever the string S was. So this is going to look pretty much exactly the same. It's just, coding wise, we're using a for loop instead of a while loop, but it's pretty much just the same thing. Anytime you do a loop, you could do it a couple different ways usually. So there you go. You got skim, you got milk, you got eggs. So we got our grocery list there. So just a slightly different way of achieving the same goal. So then what we're going to do, we're going to write a file containing a name and address. We're going to call it address.txt. So here's just a slightly different example of something that you could do with file streams. So we're going to include fstream, we're going to include string, we're going to use the namespace, we're going to do fstream my file, we're going to call it address.txt, and we're going to do fstream out again. So we're going to output a new file, and then we're going to read in a bunch of text just directly into this file. So we're going to have my file, we're going to have Paul McCartney, end line. And we're going to have my file, 1964 Penny Lane, and then end the line. And then we're going to do Yellow Submarine, California, 90210, and then end the line, and then close the file. So this will just create another file, much like we did last time. And so in the folder directory where it's putting all of the outputs of this project, we will, once it's all done, find a text file called address, and it will show us this phone. That's not where Paul McCartney really lives. I don't know where he lives. So let's see. So here it is. There's address.txt. How about that? And there you go. Paul McCartney, 1964, Penny Lane, and Yellow Submarine, California, 90210. So there you go. So that is how you can use the file stream, and we'll look at some more examples when next we meet.